The winds that sweep through Adams, Tennessee, carry more than the smell of farmland and river mist. For over 2 centuries, they have carried whispers, frightened, breathless whispers, of a witch that spoke, taunted, and terrified an entire family. Imagine lying in bed at night, blankets pulled tight, when a voice you cannot see begins to murmur from the corner of the room. Imagine hearing fists slam against your walls, the sound of chains dragging across your floor, yet no one is there. This was not just a ghost story told to children. This was an ordeal so terrifying, so well documented, that even a future president of the United States claimed to have encountered it. They called it the Bell Witch, and to this day her presence is said to linger in the dark woods of Tennessee. Adams is a quiet town along the Red River, where rolling hills meet dense trees that stretch into shadow. In the early 1800s, this was frontier land, isolated, raw, and alive with superstition. The nights were long, the wilderness pressing in close, and whispers traveled faster than the river itself. It was here, on a farm owned by John Bell and his family, that something unexplainable took root. At first, it seemed harmless. Strange scratching on the walls at night, knocks that had no source, faint whispers like wind moving through the cracks of the cabin. But soon, the disturbances escalated into something no family could ignore. Furniture moved, beds shook, the children woke screaming with welts and bruises on their skin. And then came the voice, clear, mocking, intelligent. It called itself a witch, and it said it had come for John Bell. The central question lingers even now. What was this force that haunted the Bell family? Was it truly a witch, a restless spirit, or something darker that had chosen to make itself known? The legend traces back to the early 19th century, when John Bell and his family moved from North Carolina to Tennessee. The Bells were prosperous farmers, raising crops and livestock along the Red River. For years, they lived peacefully. But in 1817, strange phenomena began. John Bell himself was the first to notice a creature in the fields, an animal unlike any he had ever seen. Some said it looked like a dog with a rabbit's head. Others described it as a monstrous hybrid that vanished when approached. Soon after, knocks echoed through the Bell home at night. Doors rattled, chains clanked, and sounds of gnawing on bedposts terrified the children. When the family searched, they found nothing, no animal, no intruder. As the weeks passed, the disturbances became violent. Sheets were ripped from beds, pillows flung across the room, and invisible hands slapped and scratched the children. The youngest daughter, Betsy, seemed to bear the brunt of the attacks. She was pinched, stuck with pins, her hair pulled until she cried out. Neighbors came to witness the events, only to experience them as well. Soon, the witch's voice emerged, speaking in a low, guttural tone at first, then clear as day. It sang hymns, quoted scripture, and mocked the family. It laughed when they prayed. It told them secrets only they could know. And worst of all, it vowed to kill John Bell. Descriptions of the entity are among the most unsettling in American folklore. Witnesses said the voice could shift, sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes like a child. It would converse for hours, answering questions with eerie precision. It seemed to know what was happening miles away, repeating sermons from churches across the countryside, reciting words spoken in private homes. Some described hearing it rustle like a body, unseen. Others felt its hands grip them with real force. Betsy Bell, tormented night after night, would cry out to her parents, only to be silenced by blows that left marks visible the next morning. One visitor reported his shoes being ripped from his feet and flung across the room, while another swore the witch whispered his darkest secrets aloud for everyone to hear. The presence was not just frightening, it was invasive, humiliating, impossible to escape. Word spread beyond Adams. Curious neighbors and skeptics alike traveled to the Bell farm to witness the haunting for themselves. What they found left many shaken. The witch would engage visitors in conversation, answering questions with uncanny accuracy. Sometimes it sang, sometimes it cursed, sometimes it erupted in laughter that chilled even the bravest men. Its hatred for John Bell grew clearer each day. It called him Old Jack and vowed he would die by its hand. For years, the family endured relentless torment, and the witch never weakened. If anything, its presence grew stronger. The story reached a fever pitch when none other than General Andrew Jackson, later to become the 7th President of the United States, traveled to the Bell farm. Jackson had heard the tales and wanted to see for himself. His party set out with wagons and horses, but as they neared the property, the horses refused to move. The wheels of the wagons stuck fast as if locked in place. Suddenly, a voice was heard on the air. "You may go on now, General." The horses bolted forward, freed from whatever held them. Inside the house, Jackson's men encountered the witch firsthand. One soldier was struck and pinned by invisible force. The voice mocked them, calling out their names, recounting things they had done that no one else should know. Jackson, shaken, is said to have declared, "I would rather face the entire British army than spend another night with the Bell Witch." His men fled before dawn. The Bell Witch did not confine herself to whispers and parlor tricks. Her torments escalated with each passing year, until her presence dominated every corner of the Bell farm. Betsy Bell, the young daughter, continued to suffer the worst. Neighbors often found her with bruises, handprints burned red into her skin, and hair yanked violently from her scalp. At times, she would collapse in seizures, her lips moving through no sound escaped, until the witch's voice filled the silence, mocking, ridiculing, promising more pain. Even those who came as skeptics left as believers. A schoolteacher who dismissed the stories was seized by invisible hands and beaten until he fled in terror. Ministers prayed over the house, only for their Bibles to be ripped from their grasp and hurled across the room. The witch was not only violent, she was cunning, clever, and determined to prove her power. Yet perhaps the most chilling part of the Bell Witch legend lies in her fixation on John Bell himself. From the very beginning, she declared him her enemy. "I will kill him," the voice hissed, "and he will never escape me." John grew weaker as the years dragged on. He suffered mysterious fits, his face twisted in agony, his body wasting away despite every effort to heal him. The witch would mock his condition openly, delighting in his suffering. On December 19th, 1820, John Bell was found dead. By his bedside lay a strange vial of liquid. Family members had never seen it before. When they tested a drop of the liquid on the family cat, the animal convulsed and died instantly. The witch's voice rang out in triumph. "I gave old Jack a dose of that last night, fixed him." To this day, John Bell is the only person in American history whose death is attributed, officially in folklore, to a supernatural entity. After John's death, the witch's torments lessened, but they did not cease entirely. She continued to speak, continued to taunt, though less frequently. Eventually, she declared that she would leave, but promised to return in 7 years. True to her word, she reappeared in 1828, visiting John Bell Jr. She spoke with him at length about religion, the future, and mankind's fate. Then she departed again, declaring she would return in 107 years. Whether she kept that promise remains unclear. Some claim strange disturbances did occur around 1935. Others argue the witch never left at all. They say she lingers still in the dark corners of the Red River, in the caves and woods where her voice can still be heard by those brave. or foolish enough to listen. Theories swirl around the Bell Witch to this day. Some believe she was the spirit of a woman named Kate Batts, a neighbor who allegedly had disputes with John Bell over land. Locals began calling the entity Kate, and she answered to the name, though never confirming her identity. Others insist she was no human spirit at all, but a demon, feeding on fear, thriving on pain. Skeptics argue the haunting was exaggerated, fueled by superstition and gossip, perhaps even hysteria within the Bell family itself. Some historians point out that John Bell's symptoms resemble those of poisoning, suggesting a human culprit may have been responsible. But no human could explain the voices heard by dozens of witnesses, the physical attacks that left visible marks, the strange vial of liquid that appeared out of nowhere. The witch, whether spirit, demon, or something else entirely, left behind mysteries that have never been solved. Even now, the story endures. Tourists visit the Bell Witch Cave, a dark cavern near the old Bell Farm, where the entity is said to dwell. Visitors report hearing whispers in the dark, feeling cold hands brush against their skin, and seeing shadowy figures moving at the edges of torchlight. Locals still tell tales of laughter drifting on the wind, of unseen voices calling their names in the night. The Bell Witch has become more than a legend. She has become part of Tennessee's identity, a reminder that some forces defy explanation. And yet, what unsettles most is the witch's own words, her promises, her predictions, her unshakable fixation on John Bell. She proved she could torment. She proved she could kill. And she promised she would never truly leave. Perhaps she is still there, waiting in the silence of Adams, Tennessee. Waiting for someone to walk too far into the woods, to linger too long in the cave, to listen too closely when the night grows heavy and the whispers begin again. So the question remains, what was the Bell Witch? A wronged neighbor returned from the grave? A demon unleashed upon a God-fearing family? Or something older, darker, that slips between our world and another? We may never know, but if you ever find yourself in Adams, standing near the Bell Witch Cave, and the air grows cold around you, do not call out. Do not listen for the whisper. For if she answers, you may never sleep in peace again. If you enjoyed this journey into America's darkest legends, like the video, subscribe, and join us as we uncover all 50 states.